is one is something very interesting. I think last week, if you remember, I mentioned OpenAI's change in strategy and pricing policy at the same time as they were changing their management with new heads, and thereby I must confess that there is something interesting. Last week I mentioned the possible strategic error made by OpenAI by mimicking Anthropic, and I was saying that indeed there is a problem, which is choosing between profitability and competitiveness, and OpenAI seems to have chosen profitability, but short-term profitability, as the Chinese models are available open source for free. They can be amended, they can be installed on premises, so that there is a big risk on OpenAI that clients quit and prefer at some point Anthropic, and over time opt for those open source models. And something very interesting is that this week in the news, in newspapers, there were a number of articles highlighting the crisis in which OpenAI is, as the company does not have a business model. And indeed, this, which I found on Tuesday, from Tuesday, is exactly highlighting and confirming what I was saying last Sunday. This means that we clearly have a company, OpenAI, that has a great product initially with ChatGPT, which was the first on the market, and in this capacity it has been the leader on the market. Then subsequently challenged by Anthropic, Google, and Perplexity. So you already know this. And OpenAI has gone through the same, let's say, the same things, the same illusion, and probably fallen into the same trap as dot-coms in the early 2000s. This means burning a lot of cash for which equity was provided, and without being able to really generate, oh, hi Brian, good evening, and without being really able to generate any cash. So this model is not sustainable over time, financially speaking. So for OpenAI, then they have to find a model by which they can indeed generate money and also still innovate, because that's the key. And I'm insisting on this because this week also we had a few major shifts that occurred. One was with two were with Anthropic. Anthropic launched a new model, Opus 4.7, which supposedly is the strongest for complex tasks such as programming, software development, and deep reasoning. So apparently Anthropic is now, so this model is a leader on the market, or is bound to be a leader on the market, and OpenAI has not made any major announcement, has not made any major progress I would say, within a few weeks, of course, we're not expecting big announcements to occur every week, but in the past, what we have noticed is that each time one of the two companies was announcing something or launching a model or launching a product, the other one was doing the same nearly on the same day. And here, this week, Anthropic has released the most powerful model ever, and OpenAI has not. So, question. So it is a big question. Likewise, or concurrently, Anthropic has launched something called I think 𝗪𝗏𝗪. 𝗪𝗏𝗪. What is it? 𝗪𝗏𝗪 is a tool that enables to generate websites. So you take inspiration from an existing website and you give your own information or data and what you want, and then supposedly Claude can design this website for you within a few minutes. In a few minutes. This is a sort of a revolution, as this would probably have a strong impact on web designers and on other development tools like the ones I'm using, 𝗪𝗪𝗲 and Codex, which for me are working perfectly, wonderfully. But here, apparently, 𝗪𝗏𝗪 is very, very strong. What is interesting is that 𝗪𝗏𝗪 was released this week at the same time as I think the Chief Operation Officer from 𝗙𝗲𝗲 was hired by Anthropic. So 𝗙𝗲𝗲 is an AI company that works on images and designs, and they automate designs that automate not just images, but they can help generate scripts for a video. If you give images, they can generate nice images, etc. So apparently the COO, the Chief Operations Officer, was hired by Anthropic. And exactly at the same time, this new release was made. So potentially a way of taking an advantage over others, such as OpenAI, that has not released anything. I'm not sure, honestly. I'm not sure how pertinent this is or not. So I've not tested. I might have a look, but I'm also a bit cautious as I have developed my own websites, and I've put a lot of energy working with Codex, with 𝗪𝗪𝗲𝗪 for the coding, for working on the design, etc. They've done a wonderful job, very fast, so it was great. But at some point, the problem with a website is not just that you have to generate it and have something just fancy. You have to have a website which does the job. This means a website that in terms of contents informs on what it should inform. Also a website that can be well referenced in search engines with the SEO, search engine optimization, but also your website must have certain functionalities, not necessarily gadgets, but some functionalities that make it robust, so that it should be able to host a certain number of visitors, to manage the queue in case there are too many connections at the same time. I do not know honestly, by how much a tool like 𝗪𝗪𝗲 allows for a robust thing or just for something fancy. I have no idea. I personally tend to rely on Anthropic, which is Google, when it comes to a website, because I think there is nothing better than Google to work or to make something that will be referenced and assessed by Google. And my understanding is also that Claude is is trained with Claude is trained with past data, and its latest training dates back from October, I think. So this means that it is always a wee bit behind in terms of accuracy. So its database is not perfectly up to date, and even in terms of what Google does, what Google likes, what Google favors, encourages, etc. I have noticed this when I was browsing for 𝗪𝗏𝗧. If you remember, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago 𝗪𝗏𝗧, this AI that is let's say the AI of AI, the AI where other LLMs collect their data, their information, and this AI that browses the deep web, that can do the deepest possible search and find things any other AI cannot find. And Claude did not know about 𝗪𝗏𝗧 and said, oh no, it does not exist. Likewise, when I mentioned OpenAI and ChatGPT 5.4, it said, no, it's a joke, it does not exist. ChatGPT has just released 5.1, blah, blah, blah. So not really up to date. And as in this world, I mean, technology and stuff, everything is changing very quickly, very fast. I am not sure at all that 𝗪𝗪𝗧 is the best option when it comes to SEO, when it comes to referencing by Google and other search engines. I'm not sure, really. I might be wrong, but honestly, I'm pretty perplexed, or dubious. So this is one thing. Still with Anthropic, Anthropic and a couple of other companies have launched their agents that can take control of your computer and do everything for you. So you've heard of 𝗪𝗪𝗲, and 𝗪𝗪𝗲 has been improved, and when you use it with Opus 4.7, which was released this week, apparently it can be very, very powerful. Possibly. I'm not too keen on giving total control of my computer to anyone, to anything. I've been working with 𝗪𝗪𝗲 to build a website that displays our corporate financials as graphs and visuals. Could that be done more easily with newer tools? Yeah, for 𝗪𝗏𝗧, probably. If you try 𝗪𝗪𝗲𝗁, you might have the type of display you want more easily, apparently. I'm just not sure, as I've not used it myself, but you can try indeed. You can try, but at the same time, I really suggest you should have your website audited by Anthropic and Gemini and or by 𝗪𝗪𝗲 and 𝗪𝗏𝗧, so as to know if this website is optimized for the SEO, for Google's SEO. But for the design, it's probably not too bad. This said, for our website, the one I made, which I changed a few times with our partner in the US, we are really contemplating calling on a professional web designer to revamp it at some point. Someone not knowing the tools better than we do, but someone knowing the codes. I mean, like the dress code, or knowing the aesthetics of websites and the practices better than we do, so that it can be really optimized for the best possible use. So we are considering this for that reason. With all those tools, it is great for I'd say a first impression, a first good impression for fancy work, but I'm left with the impression that, with the feeling that they're not enough. That at some point you need to have some professionals building on them, consolidating them, strengthening them, and arriving at something that works well. I mean, that works in an optimal way. So this is where we're at with Claude, etc. Interestingly, more companies are launching their agents, such as OpenAI, such as 𝗪𝗪𝗲. Perplexity has also launched its own agent, and what I think is a subject where you must be cautious is that those tools, those agents, take full control over your computer, which raises a number of security questions, and amongst these questions, I will give you a few. So one example, and then where there is a big structural problem. Giving full control over your computer is problematic in itself, as you delegate responsibility for everything happening on your computer. Practically speaking, this means you delegate the management of your mailbox. This means you do not know what emails are sent on your behalf with your name, with your signature. You do not know, as this agent takes initiatives and makes decisions. Then you do not know when it browses the internet, when it does things, you do not know what it does. And here is something you may have heard of already. There was someone that asked its agent, I think it was 𝗪𝗪𝗲 or OpenAI, I can't remember which one, asked it to do a certain task, and the agent did the task, but the owner of the computer then found out that his bank account had been emptied by, so not fully, but that $200 had been spent without his consent, because the agent paid $200 for a training so as to be able to complete the task, and without asking permission. So can we set up approval systems for these agents? Yes, of course. But honestly, what makes those agents especially appealing is that they do things in an entirely automated way. And most people want things to be entirely automated. And when you promise to someone that, their task will be automated, they're happy with that. And for me, there is a big problem, a big security problem. What I'm doing when I'm using Codex or when I'm using anti-gravity to do stuff on my computer or to browse their internet for me, they're not allowed to take any action, to take any initiative, and if at times they need to take an action, then I'm still there to validate. So they will never do the job in my absence. They will never do the job while I'm sleeping. They will do the job under my supervision. And my supervision is here so that I approve the task that they can do, the decision they can make or they can't make.